Exceptional women are out there. Some make headlines, others make things happen quietly in their lives and in the lives of the people they love. Exceptional women aren't hard to find. They're your neighbors and your friends, and we want you to meet them. Good morning. I'm Gay Vernon. Thanks for joining me on this Sunday morning. Have you ever had somebody you've never met before greet you with a huge smile and then hand you a fake red nose to add to your ensemble? Well, this morning's exceptional woman never leaves home without a couple of extra red noses to pass around. She also travels with baggy pants and striped socks and magic bubbles, too. Jeannie Lindheim is a clown. She's not a circus clown. She's a hospital clown. She only dons that clown persona for a very special population. The Jeannie Lindheim Hospital Clown Troupe is a very special ensemble that knows that laughter has the power to heal. They see it firsthand. They see it in the giggles and the smiles from the children. They see it when they receive a thank you from a doctor, a nurse, a parent. The Hospital Clown Troupe has been making a huge difference here in this medical hub since 1997, with some 40,000 children hospitalized in Boston every year. Requests come in every day for healing visits, and the troupe so far has clowned for 15,000 children. Jeannie Lindheim hasn't always been a clown. You might know her as a teacher. For 31 years, she taught acting, improv, speech and movement, basically anything to do with theater, at many different institutions, including UMass Boston, BC, BU, Simmons, and Harvard Law. And for more than a decade, she ran her own theater workshop in Brookline. She holds an MA from the University of California and an MFA from Brandeis. She offers workshops nationwide to physicians on how to communicate with their patients. Jeannie says she has found her mission in life. She can't imagine doing anything else right now. She's simply thriving on being a hospital clown. And she's hoping to introduce this idea all around the country so that every city would have a similar troupe to help bring happiness and healing to children one clown at a time. I asked Jeannie Lindheim what she's learned from the past 5 or so years, from this brand new chapter in her life.
Well, it's laughter has the power to heal, and I think more than anything, the gift of presence has the power to heal. When I train the clowns, I tell them clowning is not about being funny. Although we look totally ridiculous, it's really about being in the moment and giving the gift of presence. If you're truly in the moment, then whatever happens, happens. And a lot of what we do, obviously, is silly and funny, and it empowers the child so that they control us. Because in a hospital, they have absolutely no control over anything that happens to them, including the parents. We also do this for the parents. We'll give them a remote control, and they control us. We'll do a little marionette with our hands, and then give them the strings and they control us. Or we'll give them, even in the pediatric intensive care, we'll give them a choice of stickers. And choice is a huge thing in hospital clowning because, again, they don't have choices. The doctors come in and say, this is what's going to be done. So once when I was in the pediatric intensive care, a mother took 3 minutes to look at the little stars that I had to pick out one star. And my heart just stopped. It was totally magical. So yes, it is about laughter, but it's also about really being present because many doctors and nurses in hospitals, they're rushing around and we're there. We're totally there for the child.
Jeannie, it seems like it's a lesson everybody should learn, not just somebody who's going through a life and death situation or something extremely traumatic. You know, it's not as simple as stop to smell the roses, but it almost is. You need to stop and feel what is happening in this situation. How can I help? How can I best be the person that brings some solace?
Right. Well, when I knew many years ago, I knew Maury Schwartz, who the book Tuesdays with Maury was written about. And at Maury's memorial service, one of his closest friends, Charlie Derber, said, Maury gave the supreme gift of presence. You were, for a moment, the most important person in the world. And that's what we, as hospital clowns, and what the training is all about, really train people to really let go of the image of clown, funny, ha-ha. We don't wear white face. That can scare kids. But really just going in and doing lots and lots of improvisation. We are the only all-volunteer, professionally trained improvisational hospital clown troupe in the country. And so we have maybe 50 or 60 shticks that we do, but often we'll just go in and make it up, and that's even more fun.
Because you have to follow the child's lead.
Right. It's going between the trees.
Okay, we're gonna get into the hospital clown troupe in detail, and we'll find out a little bit more too about what we just told our listeners in the beginning of this too, Jeannie. That you're an actor, a dancer, a teacher on the college level. You've opened up your own theater school. All of this plays into it, but I even want to go back even further. I love to find out about our exceptional women and their childhoods. Can you tell me what yours was like? Who might have made a difference to you when you were growing up?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is he was a Latin teacher at the junior high school I went to in Cleveland, Ohio. And he walked into our drama class the first day. He probably weighed 250, 300 pounds, and he just fell on the floor and fainted. And I thought, I want to be able to do that. So I took drama, and I was hooked really at age 5 in theater. I always knew I wanted to be an actress. But when I saw Mr. Strader fall down, I said, this is my life. This is what I want to do with my life. And there were no judgments, no right, no wrong. He was loving. He was absolutely an incredible teacher of theater. And when I grew up, I mean, I'm 58 years old, and it was very, this is right, this is wrong, da-da-da, all this stuff. So it was a relief to go into theater and just have the fabulous teachers I had.
And so you had a dream at a very young age, and you were able to fulfill that.
Right.
And what does being on stage mean to you?
It taught me how to express a lot of emotions, which I don't think I really did as a child. I grew up in a house that was very controlled. And so when I went into theater, I could be all these different people. And I remember Sunday nights, I had 63 stuffed animals, and they all had names, and I would sit them on my bed and in a circle, and Panda, who I still have to this day. 63 stuffed animals. Panda was president, and they all had different voices, and we had a clown meeting every Sunday night. And my brother would come in. He would be the invisible little brownie clown or brownie doll, whatever, and he would join the meeting occasionally. But we really had meetings every Sunday night. So I lived in my fantasy a lot as a child, and I feel what clowning does, it puts me back into the fantasy world.
Is there one moment when you were on stage that kind of surpasses all others? Like if I'm saying this to you now, you can think of the one role, the one performance, and it just makes you smile?
Yeah, it was a serious play called The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. I was living in California, and I played Sandy. And there was a moment when both Brodie and Sandy are fighting, and I said something to her, and time stopped. I think for a moment we both forgot our lines because we were so in the moment. It was just magical. We were totally who we were, those characters, even though you're always yourself and the character. I was totally Sandy in that moment. And I've had many, several moments like that or the curtain goes up and you know the timing on this comedy is going to be absolutely brilliant. There was another time I have to mention, though, that to me was the gift of a lifetime. I was asked to give grand rounds at Mass General, and they usually have a doctor give the grand rounds about some child who's very sick. And this was to the Department of Pediatrics. There were 100 physicians, nurses there. And I talked about the clown troupe because they didn't know who we were in the hospital. We've been there for 5 years. But I've kept a very low profile because I don't...
Now, wait a minute. How can somebody keep a low profile walking in with big sneakers, red and white striped socks, and a red nose?
Well, the nurses might have known that we were clowns, but they didn't know about the troupe and the training.
Okay.
So the performance there was telling them all about the training, the hygiene, that this is really a 2-year training. And that was, to me, almost much better than being on stage doing a character because I was myself dressed as my clown, and we did clowning. A bunch of the clowns came. That, to me, was very much from my heart because it's what I love doing best of all.
So you're educating at the same time that you're standing up using your communication skills. I think a lot of people on stage are hoping that people leave a certain play going home thinking about it. So you're still in the same business. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
That's great.
It is. It's just with children and families.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gay Vernon. You're listening to Exceptional Women on Magic 106.7 on this Sunday morning. And my guest today is Jeannie Lindheim. She's an actress. She's a teacher, and most importantly, she's a hospital clown. Jeannie, I need to know when the clown bug bit, if I can say it very carefully. And how does Dr. Patch Adams play into this story? Now, our listeners might remember the Robin Williams movie from a few years ago based on the life of Dr. Adams and, of course, his medical work and the fact that he used humor to heal. How does this all come together?
About 7 years ago, I started training physicians in a workshop called Communicating to Patients with Life-Threatening Illness.
Now, this is before
the clown
troupe.
the clown thing, yeah. And I go into different hospitals. And
how did that start? How did you become a person that was an expert at that?
Well, I wasn't. I went in to train a risk management organization and trained their risk managers. And we did role-playing where they become the difficult person they're dealing with The person liked the workshops. He said, what can we do for our doctors? So I developed this 4-hour workshop in dealing with challenging patients. And then out of that came the communicating to patients with life-threatening illness, and it's just word of mouth. So I've given over 100 of those around the country and in the Boston area, where the doctor becomes the patient. And when they break bad news, when they become the patient, they really get it. What is that like? And now out of that, I read a book by Patch Adams because I wanted to get more educated. I was reading lots of medical articles, and I read his book, Gesundheit, which is about his free hospital he's trying to build in West Virginia.
Now, was this before the big movie came out with Robin Williams? Did
This
we
was
all know
before.
who Patch Adams was
No,
at that point?
I didn't know who he was.
Okay.
No.
He's considered to be what? The doctor that started making us laugh and understanding
Right.
how healing that can be.
Yes, he's wonderful. He's an amazing person. So I read the book. In the book, Gesundheit, there was one sentence that said, I take clowns to Russia every year. And it jumped out at me, and I said, I am going to Russia. Now, growing up in the 50s, I had nightmares that the Russians were going to come through my window and take me away. So I thought, let me just go. No logical reason. None of the clowns that went to Russia had any logical reason for doing it, because it's not a logical thing. I loved it. We walked in the hospitals. I had not a clue what I was going to do. I taught improvisation for 30 years, but I'd never been a clown. And I fell in love with it. So I thought, let me offer a day long through my theater school, which was then in Brookline Village, called The Art and Joy of Hospital Clowning, thinking 4 or 5 people might sign up.
So the reason to go to Russia was to visit sick children then, as
Right,
clowns.
to be a
Okay,
clown.
Okay.
And we were there for 2 weeks, 1 week in St. Petersburg, 1 week in Moscow. We went to hospitals and orphanages. So I put the ad in my theater brochure, and 50 people called me to do this. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I have here? And then it's just snowballed since then. We've entertained 15,000 children in the last 5.5 years. We go into the pediatric intensive care. We go into Franciscan Children's Hospital, Boston Medical Center, parties, Dana-Farber, Make-A-Wish, Special Olympics. And we're going in this year, I think in about a month, we're going into the Dana-Farber Brain Tumor Clinic waiting room.
This week's exceptional woman here on Magic 106.7 is Jeannie Lindheim. Jeannie Lindheim's Hospital Clown Troupe is a nonprofit organization. It brings children who are ill, their families, and their caregivers happiness, one clown at a time. At the end of this program, we'll give you the important information on how you can get in touch with the clown troupe. But Jeannie, I'd like to know how you find your clowns. Tell me what you look for in a clown. What characteristics are needed? A lot of people listening right now might think, what good work. I would love to be part of this. What are you looking for?
I think if someone has the real desire to do it, they can do it. Now, whether they can go through the training and go in the hospitals and not let it affect them too much. Because as your clown, you're very vulnerable. It isn't you put on this mask and I'm my clown and I'm funny, ha-ha. You're very heartfelt and you're very naked as a clown. So I think if somebody has the desire to do it, then they go through the training. We're currently now training 16 new clowns, and we have 13 old spicy clowns in the troupe. Most of the people, when I interview them to be in the troupe, they love children. They have been in the hospital. They might have had a sick child. And they just want to explore that part of themselves, to do something really lovely for someone else and themselves.
And what is the training like?
Oh, the training is very intense. It's 4-day-long workshops spaced over 4 months. There's a lot of improvisation. I teach permission to enter. How do you enter a child's room? Because you always have to ask permission through either breath or verbally asking permission. And you keep asking permission to be there because it's their space. You are the guest in the room. I do a lot on hygiene because obviously we don't want to spread germs. We do a lot of improvisation because I want them to feel comfortable with that. And I would say 90% of the people in the troupe have had no theater training. So it's like, am I climbing Mount Everest or what? Thinking train them to be hospital clowns, learn improvisation, learn all the, empowering the child. We do a lot of role playing in the workshop where one clown is a child in the bed and 2 clowns come in. And then they give each other feedback on what worked or what scared them. Did they get too close? And I'm doing a train the trainers so that we can expand. My dream is to really expand all over the country so we can have hospital clown troupes everywhere of this nature.
Now, when you first approached a hospital, Jeannie, did they welcome you with open arms? Did they say, wait a minute, what is this all about? We have to think about it. How did that go?
They said yes. I called one hospital. I said, I have a hospital clown troupe, which I kind of didn't. I would the next day.
No official stationery yet, right?
No. I won't mention that hospital. They said, come on in. We went in. There was one child there. Literally, one child we clowned for an hour. And then I called all the other hospitals, and they said, come in. And nobody ever said, who are you? What are you doing? They let us in. And I sent, obviously, my resume and letters and other things, but nobody ever said we couldn't come in.
It was a thumbs up from the first day.
Right. Everything has happened like this with the troupe. Even the video that Rex Trailer helped us put together.
Which I saw, which was wonderful.
Yeah, it was all for free. We've had so many donations, in-kind services, stickers, cameras, even the music behind the video. I thought, how am I going to get the music? And I'm not a video person. So I was on the T one day going down to teach at the Boston Conservatory, and a little voice in my head said, talk to this guy in front of you. I'm like, I do not talk to strange man on the T at 8:30 in the morning. So it said, no, talk to him. He teaches at Berklee School of Music. So I said to my little voice, I said, if he gets off at Hines, I will talk to him. Well, he did. So I went up, I said, do you teach at Berklee? He said, how did you know? I said, I just had a feeling. He taught film scoring, and he and another professor there did all the music for our hospital clown video. So things like this happen all the time, and if it's meant to be, it'll be. And obviously it's happening, so it's the joy of my life.
And how many years has it been going on now?
5.5 years.
And what happens to the rest of your life while you're doing this? Because you came in this morning, I have to tell our listeners, you're all dressed up and ready to go as if you're leaving here and heading right over to entertain children. You've got the outfit, the Bugs Bunny pants, the red and white striped socks, the sneakers, the red nose. Everybody who's walked in this radio station this morning and seen you has absolutely been delighted. So my guess is that this is your joy of life at this moment. Do you still have your school? Do you still teach? Do you still hit the road and talk about other things as a former actress and teacher?
Not really. I tell the clowns I have no life except a clown life. I resigned at the Boston Conservatory. I don't have my school anymore. I might reopen it at some point, but not now. The only thing that makes sense to me to do in my life right now is to make kids and parents happy. I see no other reason to be on this planet.
Good morning again, everybody. You're listening to Exceptional Women on Magic 106.7. I'm Gay Vernon. And I'm so glad you could join me this morning so that you could hear Jeannie Lindheim talk about her hospital clown troupe. Jeannie just said she can't think of any other reason to be on the planet. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all say definitively that this is my reason to be here? And you had this eureka moment while you were in your 50s. Do you ever sit and think about that? Like when this happened to you, the reason it took a while, the reason you did other things first?
Well, I think I needed to do everything else first in order to be a hospital clown, because I never would have thought of this in my 20s. So I taught theater for 30 years. I loved it. I loved teaching acting, movement, improvisation, characterization, auditioning.
You did this on college campuses?
Well, I did this on college campuses mainly, and also for 13 years in my own school, which was professional theater training. So I loved doing that, and my kids were growing up. They were at home, so I loved it. Now my kids are gone, further away than I'd like. Then training all the doctors in the doctor workshops about healing themselves, healing their patients. Everything I've done in my life has to do with healing. Everything, even from my 20s. Teaching acting, yes, I'm teaching them to be a character, but they're really healing themselves in a way by taking on different persona, getting into characterization techniques. So I think the clown thing, when I went to Russia, it was just like, this is it. I am so happy clowning. And most people don't know I'm a clown in the troupe. They think, oh, it's my troupe and I run the troupe. It's like, oh my gosh, being a clown is the whipped cream and the cherry. I go on almost all the gigs we do, and I love it. And it keeps it... All the office work is the office work, but the training is what I love most of all, and the clowning.
You're giving out this message this morning, Jeannie, that you are in full possession of yourself. You know who you are. You know what you want to do. You know what you're meant to do now. Mm-hmm. That's the message you just gave us, too. Do you know where that comes from?
Where did it come from? Well, 3 years ago, I had breast cancer, and after that, I really thought about, after this is over and I'm totally fine now, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Which I think most women in their 40s and 50s think about. You know, I have 20 years, 30 years, 40 years left, whatever. So I thought, this is what I want to do. And I also think one turning point, which was so clear, I was teaching at the conservatory. I got a call from an old student who was in New York, and he said, one of my friends has a child who has a brain tumor and would love a clown. Can you go see this child? I hung up the phone. I said, what am I doing teaching acting? Even though I love it, this is more important. So the person did not call us for 4 months. One day on a Wednesday afternoon, I got a call. This is so-and-so. Can you come see our child? I said, would you like us to come tomorrow or Friday? And he said, "You better come tomorrow because I don't think she'll be with us on Friday." I hung up the phone and I called Beth, one of our other clowns, and we went in the next day. And from that point on, I knew this is what I had to do, and I have the power to do this. I have the skills to do it with all my acting background, training, administrative, and just meeting and loving people. I could bring together the people to make this happen.
So an experience like that tells us that you give an awful lot of yourself when you walk into a child's room. You're ready to give everything that you have, your talent and your intelligence and your caring. I would like to know what you take away when you walk out of that room.
We take away so much more than we give. I know that sounds crazy. Dr. Nowitzki, the head of the pediatric intensive care at Mass General, asked me, "How do you do this?" And I wanted to turn to him and say, "How do you do this?" You feel after you've done a gig at any of the hospitals that you could go home and eat bonbons and you don't have to do another thing all week long. So what you take away is, I have hundreds right now as I'm talking to you. I have images of hundreds of children that I've seen and just the light in their eyes. And that's really what we're clowning to, the light behind their eyes. Because some are very, very sick, very, very sick. There was one young man, this is a fabulous story, in Franciscans. So they brought 15 children in a fairly small room, and there were 5 clowns. And they wheeled a young man in, about 16, and the nurse turned to me, and she said, "Oh, he's blind and deaf." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? So 10 minutes later, they started to wheel him from the room. He made all these sounds. He knew we were there. They put him back right in the room. They didn't take him out. I went over to him, and I'm thinking, I want to do something. And we're very respectful about touch. We do touch the kids, but we're very respectful. I just went over, and I very gently touched the top of his hand. And he leaned toward me, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And then I took my hand, and I just very gently stroked his cheek. And it was one of the most magical moments of clowning in the whole 5.5 years for me. And it was nothing to do about being funny. It was about being present for what he needed. So to have that kind of connection, which I think all the clowns in the troupe feel. We recently had a clown meeting, and every single one, that connection, that thread between you and the child is so incredible that you don't get that much in your life. And that's what we take away.
How often do you do this?
We do about 5 hospital visits a month, sometimes more. I'll go in the pediatric intensive care, which is the training I'm doing now, possibly 4 or 5 times a month, depending if we can go in. And then we do a lot of Christmas parties. I gave the clowns January off because we did about 8 Christmas holiday parties.
These are all volunteers who have some other way of making a living in their life.
Absolutely.
This is what they do just simply because they love it.
Mm-hmm. They're hooked. To be honest, they get hooked. They can't not do it. The ones who've been with the troupe for 3, 4, and 5 years, they get a little crazy. And I do too. If I'm not clowning, I go, I have to clown today. It's a passion. The one drawback, I have to say this, is sometimes I'll go into Bread and Circus. This happened a few years ago, and I walked out with my 2 bags, and there was a curb, and a normal person would just step down to the curb and go to their car. And I was like, I don't know how to step down, because obstacles are a clown's delight. We want lots of obstacles to what we try to do. And I couldn't figure out, as me/clown, how to get off the curb, because I was my clown. So sometimes I'll go into my clown brain, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? Or I'll go in the supermarket and go, which one should I get, this one? And I'll sort of go into it. Or I'll see a child, and I'll do my little nose trick. So that sometimes happens when I'm out in public, not often.
You're listening to Jeannie Lindheim, the founder of Jeannie Lindheim's Hospital Clown Troupe based in Brookline. She is this week's Exceptional Woman here on Magic 106.7. I'm Gay Vern, and we just have a couple minutes left. Jeannie, not all of us have the talent to be a hospital clown, but you're sending us a very clear message here this morning that it really is never too late to make a difference. You found something, and that something happened to be something that was really needed, not just for the kids and the parents, but also for the doctors and nurses too. All of us really can do something to improve somebody else's day, can't we? My guess is you have some advice on how to find out what that might be.
Well, I guess I keep journals, and I write down all the things that bring me most joy. I do a gratitude journal at the end of the day, and I think writing down the 3 things that made you happiest really sometimes help to link you into what your passion is. I go to the puppy store and play with all the puppies at night. I was there last night for about an hour. So finding out what you really love to do by just writing about it, or stream of conscious writing. Don't even think about what you're writing. Just write down what you most love on the face of the planet. And somewhere in that page or 2 pages or 10 pages will be a passion, something that you could pursue and call people and say, who do you know that does this? And I have this wild idea to go do rescue dogs somewhere. So I think writing really, really helps me. Or getting images, doing guided imagery on your own of what it is you most love. Or you see a television show or you read a book and one quote. You know, Patch's thing in his book, I Take Clowns to Russia, that was it. That had to be. So be aware of all the messages in the universe that are out there. And when you go, and your heart starts going, that's it. Whatever that thing is, that's what really excites you. And to follow your dreams, to never think for 1 second that you can't do exactly what you think you want to do. Because I do believe that. It's unlimited possibilities. Anything on the face of the planet, I know that I can do.
So you never have a day, Jeannie, where you wake up and say, I just can't get past A, B, or C in my life because it's too much of a roadblock.
If I do, when I was in the hospital for the surgery, I brought in lots of red noses. And every time I had the mammogram, and I won't go into details, I would put a red nose on. So I used humor as a way to, every anesthesiologist was like, oh my gosh, who's this wacko lady? But I put a red nose on and gave them a red nose. So if there's an obstacle, which I think breast cancer is not, a bowl of cherries, you find a way to get through it. And I think I did it more with humor and my red noses and doing lots of research, obviously. But I think it's sort of the climb every mountain. If you have a dream, you can absolutely make it happen. I have not done this alone. I've had lots and lots of people help me. But it's going out to find those people who are as passionate as you are about it. And that's what you have to do. But there are no problems. There are only opportunities to be creative.
Jeannie Lindheim's hospital clown troupe continues to capture the hearts of patients in Boston hospitals as we speak. The joy and the healing they inspire is immeasurable. If you would like to get in touch to find out more about the clown troupe, how you can support the wonderful work being done, here's the number to call, 617-277-2488. They're based in Brookline. My thanks to Jeannie Lindheim, this week's exceptional woman. And Jeannie, thanks for the red nose. If you know somebody who's overcome obstacles or beaten the odds in the toughest of times or made an impact on her community, we'd love to hear that story. You can get in touch on the web, magic1067.com, or write to us here at Magic 106.7, 55 Morrissey Boulevard in Boston, 02125. I'm Gay Vernon. Please join my partner Candy O'Terry and me every Sunday morning at 7:30 for Exceptional Women.